Hello, my name's Paul Scholey and this is my colleague Dan Kindell. We're partners from the employment team at Morrish Solicitors, and we've been advising over the last couple of months about all things coronavirus related. We wanted to record some answers to what we think are going to be very frequently asked questions in the coming days and weeks, not about such matters as furlough and working from home, but about the return to work as the lockdown begins to loosen. So with that said, Dan, where do we start?
Well, I think one particular issue that employees might want to know about is if an employer is making redundancies as a result of the effects of COVID-19, what sort of obligations might the employer be under? So do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, perhaps the most interesting question there, since the furlough scheme seems to have been extended to October, is whether an employer can lawfully make redundancies when furlough is an option. What do you think to that?
I think there's got to be some circumstances where the employer is entitled to say, look, this business isn't going to continue beyond the end of the furlough scheme anyway, and perhaps implementing the furlough scheme might even result in a cost to the employer. For example, if they're choosing to top up pay, or perhaps they're paying costs for accountants or others who may be processing the payments for them. So I'd like to think that there were very, very few circumstances in which an employer could get away with it because of the extension of the furlough scheme, but I envisage that there may be some exceptions to that rule if the employer can show perhaps that there's no chance of this business surviving, or there is some sort of cost to the business that they can't continue to afford and keep people on furlough. But I agree with you that it's got to be arguable that for as long as the furlough scheme is in place, that no redundancies should be made. There's also, of course, the obligation to consult if the company is thinking about making redundancies, and that affects 20 or more individuals at the same workplace. So one would hope that unions and representatives would say to the employer, well, hang on a minute, why are we proposing redundancies here when the furlough scheme is continuing? Surely, as part of the consultation process, we should delay any decisions about making redundancies until such time as the furlough scheme ends. So that could be another option.
So that relates, of course, not only to large-scale flexible redundancies, but even where just one person or a handful of people are being made redundant, there remains, of course, an obligation on the employer to consult individually with the people who are at risk of redundancy. So again, if you're identified as at risk, then at your very first meeting, the question to be asked is, why am I not being furloughed as an alternative to redundancy, at least while the furlough scheme lasts?
Yeah. Now, of course, there's also the prospect of the furlough scheme, as the government said, having to be contributed to by the employer. So it's being wound down, although the detail isn't out there at the moment. It seems as though there will be, at a point in time, a cost to the employer to continue with furlough. So that could be part of the issue as well.